What's good people, and welcome to the Silly, Nerdy, Sometimes Wordy podcast. And I'm your host, BK, and this is episode 24, details of the WGA Agreement, tentative agreement, that is. And in this week's episode, I'm going to be covering the details of the WGA tentative agreement in terms of what they got, including the AI protections, increased staff in the writer's room, residuals, and streaming transparency. That's what I'll be covering. Hope you'll join me. All right. How's everybody doing out there? I hope you all are doing well. I'm very happy to be doing this podcast and enjoy it every time. So we're going to be getting into this WGA agreement. Looks like it's going to get done. Now, the vote still has to be completed. They're still going through the ratification process, which will be complete and voted on by October 9th. That's when everything will become official. But they feel very, very confident about it, so much so that the writers are already back to work. Rooms are opening. And yeah. Now, at the top, let me just say that the majority of this podcast is coming from an article from an entertainment outlet, The Verge. And that is where I'm getting my information from, which I will be reading from and just talking from. And also the editorial staff from this outlet, The Verge, they are unionized with the WGA. So they are under the guild as well with the Writers Guild of America. So I just want to get that out there. This is more so informational and a little bit of opinion, but just the details of what they got in this deal. Some of the details, obviously, I'm not going to have everything because the contract is long. And so that is what I'm going to be doing. Okay. So let's cover some of the stuff that is included in this tentative agreement that is good until 2026, and why you're seeing the Jimmy Fallon show that's back on, and the daytime shows, and Sherry and The View and all that stuff. So the pay increases, let's go into that first. And the pay increase, I'm going to read in this new agreement. Over the course of year one, there's going to be a 5% increase in year one, a 4% increase in year two, and a 3.5% increase in year three. Now, they definitely got pay increases in this deal, which is good. They definitely need to have that for all of the writers at all different levels. Also mentioned in this article, they said 60 days after the contract is ratified, writers, producers, and showrunners and others, co-workers and producers, they will receive a minimum weekly rate in amount of 9.5% premium over the story editor. And that means when the writers are, I'm going from this article. In the writer's room are individually responsible for writing particular episodes. They have to now be paid script fees on top of their basic weekly wages. So when they put out, any type of script, they'll get a fee for that script on top of what they're already getting paid on a weekly basis. So that's very good. So that's the details of the pay. So basically, they got an increase in wages, which is good. Like I said, I am not an expert on this. I'm just going off of the information I can find. There's a lot of information out there, so this is the best approach that I decided to go. But the bottom line is that they got an increase in pay. The writers did, which is very important that they got an increase in pay so that they can return to work and feel comfortable and do what they love to do. Now let's move on to the increased staff in the room, the more writers in the room. So they were able to accomplish that. So now moving forward with this new deal, this tentative deal, there are a certain amount of episodes that will have a certain amount of writers in the room. And it seems like the more episodes you have, the more writers in the room that will have to be hired. For instance, if a season has between 7 to 12 episodes, then they have to have 5 writers that must be hired. And for shows that have 13 episodes, then that number jumps to 6. They also say at all sizes, at least 3 writers in the showroom must be writer producers. They also say that this is not necessarily the maximum. So they're also going to have the ability, the showrunners are going to have the ability to hire more writers as needed, depending on the size of the production. So we'll see how this goes, but ultimately they got more writers in the room, and that's good to have more writers in the room. It's more opportunity for young writers to be on the path to becoming a showrunner as well. Another thing wasn't in this article, but I do know I saw that they will be able to be on set because they see their writing come to life and be able to make real-time decisions as things happen on set. And that is very important. And it's also very important in the writer's development to progressing in their career and also making those connections with the different people in the industry. So that's very good as well. Another thing we're going to move on to is the residuals and streaming transparencies. Obviously, you've heard and I've spoken about how the residual payments are cents to dollars, and some people have came out and physically showed the actual payments they've received. Now with this new deal, obviously there will be bigger residual payments. They're also going to be giving the Writers Guild access to the streaming data so that they can see how it's performing. Now, that information is not going to be made public to us, like me, but it's important that the writers see the information so that they can be paid accordingly. So we won't have access to these stats, but the writers and the different studios, the writers that are, and producers, showrunners that are doing this, they will have access to this. So the AMPTP and the WGA, they agreed to share this information. Some of this information is the total number of hours streamed, both domestically and internationally, as well as self-produced, especially those high-budget streaming programs. They're going to share that with the WGA. But like I said, that information is going to be confidential, but the WGA will be able to share it with their members, and they'll get the viewership information so that they can determine the best rates to pay them in terms of the residual payments. They also said that viewership based on bonuses as well as new foreign streaming residual rates, the union says will amount to a 76% jump in payments over the next 3 years, because this deal goes from all the way up until May 1st, 2026. So they will be getting an increased payment in these residuals, no longer those $1.32 or $300 for one episode. They'll get more. So that is very, very good. Okay, moving on. Now let's get to the AI protections, the artificial intelligence protections. Interesting stuff here. They did say that they're not banning AI, So they are able to use it, but they will have certain protections and constraints in place. For instance, I'm going to just read off again. I'm going off of this Verge article that is out there, and I have a link to this article in my show notes so you can read the full article. Just definitely want to give them credit for this information. Now, in this article, they said about the AI protections, if the writers are hired by the studios they want, they'll be free to use the AI when performing writing services. Now, if the company consents and provides, the writers follows applicable company policies. But studios cannot require the hired writers to use AI tools. They must also disclose to the writers if any materials given to the writers were generated by AI. Pretty much that means if they are using something that was material that is, like I said, generated by AI, they have to disclose that information alone. Hey, this was not written by, Joe Smo. So they have to, be transparent when AI is used and obviously when it is not used. The contract also does explicitly prohibit the use of AI to write or rewrite literal material. So they do have protections there, especially when it comes to source material for a script. So they also said AI generated material can't be used to undermine writers' credit or separated rights. Okay, that was a lot of information. And to me, that says you are able to use the artificial intelligence for scripts and things, but you have to be very transparent about it, have it documented. Everybody has to be aware when it is being used, and you can still use it as a tool. Just make sure that everybody involved with the process knows what it's being used for and where it's being used on the script, on the project. So definitely you can use it. Just have that information transparent and make sure everybody on the project is aware of when it is used and when it is not used, so that the writers can get credit for their work when they are writing and it's not AI generated. So that's very good. So the bottom line is you can use AI. You can use AI or you cannot use AI. So that's very good. And they have, like I said, protections in place for that for the writers. One last thing, it's very quick, is the healthcare. They obviously received increased pay with this deal, which means they will be able to make a certain more amount of money for them to qualify for healthcare benefits, because a lot of writers and the actors didn't make a certain amount of money to qualify for healthcare benefits. And this article says in order to qualify for healthcare benefits, WGA members have to make a certain amount of money annually. With this new pay increase structure, this will be easier for WGA members to qualify for healthcare. So this is very good because that's a basic thing that we all need. They need it too. Just because they work in the entertainment industry doesn't mean that they don't need to go get their yearly physical or take their kids to do certain things or certain emergencies and surgeries. And, it's good that this agreement has happened and that they are able to get to that threshold where they can get seen and get coverage for the various medical uses that we all need. So that's very, very good. Okay, so that's it. I know this was a little bit of a different episode. I feel like I might do another one of these again when the SAG-AFTRA comes to their agreement. And speaking of, the SAG-AFTRA has been meeting with the AMPTP multiple times this past week. They took a break over the weekend and will resume on Monday, October 9th. It seems as though they are trending to having an agreement within the next week or so. And now that they have this WGA agreement in place, they have the framework to have that deal done. And hopefully it will not take too long for them to come to an agreement and ratify it and approve it and vote on it. So we will see how that goes, but they've been having productive meetings and negotiating. They've been back to the table talking, and they will continue talking until they come with an agreement. But the fact that they're talking is very, very good with the actors and the AMPTP, the group that represents all the major studios. So that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Please follow me I am on the Wisdom app at JamesW24. This podcast is available on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Pandora, and Apple Podcast as well, and various different places. I do post it on Facebook and Instagram as well. And that's all. I am working on some future episodes. Once the SAG deal gets done, I'll go into that as well. And there's also some things I have planned for like Nerdy Notes Focus. Some certain things have come out in terms of after this writer's deal has been done with stories on scripts, exciting MCU stuff that I'll be getting into in other episodes. But I will end it here. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell your friends about it. Leave a like, leave a comment, share, tell somebody about it, and come back and see me sometime. And until next time, we will talk soon.